Okay, good morning, everybody. Thank you for the introduction, Aku. Like Aku said, my name is Ashley. I am the legal director of the International Ice Hockey Federation. Within my department is also integrity, which includes anti-doping and match fixing. So today, my objective is not to make you guys experts in anti-doping or match fixing. My objective is just to remind you that these topics exist so that they're always in your head when you're dealing with your players or when you're confronted with it yourself. So our agenda will be anti-doping, the phenomenon, coaches' roles and responsibilities, coaches' interventions, substances and methods in ice hockey, and coaches' advice. Then we'll move on to match fixing, which will include manipulation in competitions, betting statistics, IIHF rules, IIHF's approach to manipulation of competitions, and what actions coaches can take to raise awareness and prevent match fixing. I will apologize, I am a native English speaker, so I will try to go slow, but if you have any questions or I'm going too fast, please just scream at me. I promise I'm never offended. Okay, anti-doping. So anti-doping is a phenomenon in ice hockey. There are several things that we believe lead or have recently increased anti-doping in ice hockey. And one of those is the scientific development. So every year scientists get smarter and the medicine to treat illness gets better. The problem with this, while it's very good for all of us who might get sick, is that ice hockey players and other athletes use that medication to enhance their sporting performance or use that medication to recover quickly from injury. Additionally, increased salaries. The more salaries go up, the more there is an incentive to ice hockey players to do everything they can possibly do to get those higher salaries. And also demand in ice hockey. Players have such a demand on their time and their performance. And as that increases, there is a greater desire to use any substance they can to try to recover faster, to try to meet those demands that coaches, that GMs are placing on them as athletes. So what this is leading to is an increase in anti-doping in ice hockey. So WADA code puts requirements on coaches. One of those is to be knowledgeable and comply with all policies and rules which are applicable to you or your players. So exactly what does that mean? So you need to use your influence on your player values and behavior to foster anti-doping attitudes. Okay, let's be honest. As coaches, all your players look up to you. They look to you for inspiration. Is this wrong? Is this bad? How you treat anti-doping, if you take it seriously, your players are going to take it seriously. If you trivialize it and make it seem like it's irrelevant, it doesn't matter, then your players are going to act like that. And that means they're going to get in trouble because they're going to do something wrong. Because if you don't take it seriously, neither will they. You should be familiar with your league rules, your national federation rules, and IIHF anti-doping rules. And why is that important? Because if you don't know the rules, if you cannot tell a player what is wrong or right, how can you expect them to know the rules? How can you lead if you can't be a leader and ask them to do something if you don't do it yourself? You need to be familiar with the prohibited list. I cannot tell you every single substance on the prohibited list. It is insane. It is so long. There's synonyms. I can't even pronounce 95% of the words. The reality is you shouldn't know every substance, but you need to be aware that it exists so that you can tell your athletes to check it if they're going to take a substance. You need to raise players' awareness of use of medications, supplements, street drugs, marijuana, cocaine. I have cases every single year, recreational drugs. We were having fun. We thought it was at a competition. I got caught in competition. I had no desire to enhance my sporting performance. I just wanted to have fun, have a night out. Unfortunately, players get caught. They get 8 to 16 months of a suspension. Be vigilant, intervene whenever you think a player may have broken the rules or taken drugs. If you have a suspicion that a player is doing drugs, is taking a substance to try to make himself better, taking testosterone, intervene. Show him that it's not necessary to take drugs or to do any type of substance in order to enhance his sporting performance. And I think what is really, really important is that you know the consequences, because consequences are a huge deterrent to a player. It's a risk-benefit analysis. Every player looks at what could potentially happen and what are my benefits. If I take this substance, maybe I'll go to that next level. Maybe I'll get that higher contract. Maybe he will. But if he gets caught, it can be between a 2 to 4 year suspension from playing ice hockey. That can destroy an athlete's career. So, what should a coach do if you suspect a player is using drugs? Talk to the player. Ensure he understands the rules on the prohibited list. In actuality, the player is going to make the decision. He's going to make the decision whether he wants to take that risk. All you guys can do is you can talk to them, you can instruct them, show them that it's bad. Try to convince them that it's not a road that they want to go down. Check to see if you know they're doing it deliberately. Maybe they have an illness. Maybe they just don't understand the system. If you have a player on your team that is an asthmatic, or you have a player on your team that has ADHD, in our system we have what's called a TUE. That means he can take the substance, he just needs to get a clearance from the doctor. Just make sure you know the rules. So if you do have those players that need to take those drugs because it's for their health, just make sure they get a TUE, and it's very simple. Make sure the players is aware of sporting values and health. I think it's really important that you guys don't need to say bad, bad, bad. You shouldn't take drugs, you're going to get caught, you're going to get sanctioned. Make sure you understand those health implications of taking testosterone so that you can tell them, like, look, this may help you now, you may get that contract, but think of the long-term health disadvantages you could face by maybe getting that higher contract today. And make it clear. You guys, like I said, you set the example. If you set the tone that drugs do not occur on your team, you do not play athletes that take drugs, they'll get that message. This just gives you an idea. We have ice hockey cases every year. Around the world, we have between 20 and 30 cases every single year. I don't prosecute every single one of those. Usually the national anti-doping organizations in each country will, but they all come to me in the end. These are some of the substances that are taken: cocaine, amphetamine, HZTZ, meldonium, cannabis. Some of the side effects that you guys should be aware of for the most commonly used substances, so that if a player is taking these substances, you can be aware of it. Nervous, agitation, aggression, insomnia, loss of appetite, weight loss, steroids, behavior disorder, aggression, acne, liver disease. And for marijuana, forgetfulness, poor condition, and additional of other side effects from taking marijuana. The key is that you guys, like I said, you guys shouldn't be experts of this, but if you notice unusual behavior from your athletes, just ask them. Don't turn a blind eye. If your player's skating good on the ice, but he's super aggressive, maybe there's something else going on. Maybe you just sit down, you talk to him. If it's not you, have another coach. Have your strength and conditioning coach. Anyone that you feel like has a rapport with that athlete, just talk to them. Create a line of communication with them. Okay, supplements. The average player does not need supplements. I know that supplements are hugely controversial in all sports. Should we advise our players to take it? Should we advise our players not to take it? The IIHF's position is do not take supplements. There is just too high of a risk from contamination in supplements. And the reality is only players with nutritional deficiencies really need those supplements. And if you have a player or you believe for some strong reason this athlete definitely needs this supplement, talk to a doctor. Because that doctor will either tell you yes, give you a TUE on the off chance that he could get caught, or maybe he'll give you better advice. Maybe he'll give you an eating plan for your athlete so that he doesn't need supplements. I think the biggest issue with supplements is that they're not pure. 95% of the athletes that I prosecute, I took this supplement. I read the label. There was nothing in it. It was contaminated. Or I took this supplement. I read the label, and there was this synonym. I didn't realize there was a synonym for a prohibited substance. And also what is really important is that you guys are aware of how a case is prosecuted. Because if you have an athlete that takes a supplement, he comes to you and says, hey, coach, I had no clue that there was anything bad in the supplement. Unfortunately, I don't have an option. It's not my decision about whether to prosecute this. It's WADA's decision. So this will go, I will have to prosecute it, and it could potentially go to CAS. The things that I will look at to see how long of a suspension I have to give a player will be whether or not the player read the label of the product, whether he cross-checked the ingredients on the label with their prohibited list, whether he made an internet search, if he ensured that the product was reliably sourced, he consulted with experts, he spoke with a doctor. And I think it is really important, and this is very cumbersome to athletes, but if you have an athlete that says, hey, I'm taking this substance, this helps me, I've read the label, I think it's safe, I spoke with a doctor, have him keep a bit of that supplement. Sometimes they come in huge containers, just have him put it aside or have him get it tested. Because if I get a player who took a substance and he says to me, I read the label, I checked with a doctor, I did everything I was supposed to, I'll check that supplement. And if it's contaminated, then he will get off. So we talked about being knowledgeable about the rules. A second issue that we're being confronted with is tampering and complicity. So always cooperate with player testing and never encourage or conspire with players to engage in anti-doping rules. This has become a real issue for coaches and athlete entourage. A lot of time coaches think they're not subject to anti-doping rules. A player gets caught, he's the one who gets in trouble. A player refuses a test, he's the one who gets in trouble. However, with the 2015 code and the new 2021 code, WADA and international federations are taking a different stance, especially in team sports. We've noticed situations where players are on teams, they're handed a handful of drugs, and the coach, not necessarily the coach, maybe the strength and conditioning, maybe even the GM says, you take these or you're off my team. Historically, we've made the decision, this is the responsibility of the athletes. They decide what goes in their body. They ultimately still had a decision when that coach handed them those pills to take them. We've made the decision, no, this isn't fair anymore. We need to hold the person responsible who is putting those players in that situation. We're starting to hold coaches. We're starting to hold athlete entourage responsible, sanctioning them with tampering or complicity so as to ensure that the person who is actually encouraging, who is forcing the violation on the athletes is held responsible. So in that sense, never prevent a DCO, which is a doping control officer, from taking a sample from a player. If you're unsure of whether a DCO is legitimate, a DCO comes while you guys are out of competition, you're in a hotel room, you're getting ready to leave, maybe to go to practice, and some DCO shows up and says, I want to take a sample from your athlete, and you're uncomfortable with him. Check his ID. Check his letter. Make sure he's legitimate. Ask him, can I speak with your manager? Feel comfortable, but do not instruct your athlete not to provide a sample. Never encourage, advise, or direct a player not to provide a sample to DCO. Never prevent a chaperone from entering a locker room. The IIHF gets, after a game, that locker room time, that's precious. We get that. The IIHF has worked with WADA to allow ice hockey players to go from the ice to their locker room before going to the doping control room. This is very unique. Most team sports this is not allowed. But the key is the chaperone always has to follow that athlete. And as a coach, I get the sacred time in the locker room. You have to either make the decision. That athlete goes directly to the doping control room and he doesn't come to the locker room because I don't want anyone else in my locker room except my players and my staff, or you have to let that athlete and that chaperone into the locker room. Because if you don't let that chaperone into the locker room, you can be held liable for tampering. Never pull a player from a game or hide a player in an attempt to prevent the player from being tested, and never direct or require a player to take a prohibited substance. You absolutely cannot encourage players to take any type of substances. Okay, just general advice for you guys is to set an example. Like I said, you guys are the leader of your team. They're going to look up to you. If you take doping seriously, if you take this process seriously, then your athletes are going to take it seriously. I can give you an example in Pyeongchang at the Winter Olympic Games. So we had so many problems with athletes. We had teams locking chaperones in bathrooms. We had players refusing to acknowledge the chaperone. We had chaperones that were crying because of how bad athletes were treating them. This is a direct result of the leadership. If you guys treat it trivial, your players will. And most of the time, who will get in trouble? It will be the players. Oops, sorry. Provide players with necessary and accurate information. Make players accountable. And I think be vigilant and intervene. I think it's really important. And I understand you have a player, he's doing awesome on the ice. He's doing really well, he's leading your team, but he's got some really odd behavior. Is it something you want to mess with? Just talk to him. Find out what's going on so you ensure that he is not off your team because of a doping violation. Okay, so now I'm going to quickly shift to the second topic so that Aku doesn't kill me because of time. So the next thing I'll speak about is manipulation in ice hockey. Okay, so what makes ice hockey attractive to you? Why do you guys go see a game? Isn't it the uncertainty? You go see a game, you have two teams, you may have an underdog and a team that does better than the other, but still, it's uncertainty. You have no idea who's going to win. No matter if there is an underdog, there's still a chance that that team could play really good and win. And what do you expect when you watch an ice hockey game on the ice? You expect every single player to go out on the ice and play their absolute best. They're going to play till they win. They're going to do their best. The question becomes, is what if they don't do the best? What if they go on the ice and the result is already known? A player has decided, hey, I'm going to lose the first period on purpose so that maybe I can get a bit of money. I'll win the entire game, but I'm going to lose the first period on purpose. That's not fun for the player. It's not fun for the fan. It shows a lack of respect on the behalf of the player. It shows a lack of respect to the coaches. It shows a lack of respect to the fans. And when they're playing on their national team, it shows a lack of respect for the country. Next, I'm going to show you a short video about integrity in ice hockey.
Doping. Violent conduct. But what about losing on purpose to win money on a bet? Or to face an easier opponent in the next round? This is called competition manipulation, or match fixing. It kills the competition, the excitement, the drama. It kills the motivation for clean athletes and fans. It kills the spirit of sport. Disrespecting your team. Disrespecting your opponents. Disrespecting your fans. You can make a difference. Don't bet on your sport. Don't fix, always do your best. Don't share inside information and always report.
Okay, in ice hockey, we have, like they said, competition manipulation or fixing a game is wrong. But we think it's wrong for two reasons. We not only think it's wrong if a player or a coach or official fixes a game for money. That's reason number one. But we also, against the IIHF rules, is if a coach, a player, or an official, I guess it can't be an official, coach or players fix a game for sporting reasons. Let's say you make the decision, hey, it's better if I lose against this team because this gives me an easier route to the semifinals, to the finals. That is also against IIHF rules. And the reason that's against IIHF rules is because of our competition structure. Our competition structure is ripe for competition manipulation. You know you're not going to be promoted. And you know you're not going to be relegated. So is it really important that I win this game? The problem with that is by that team losing that game, it has a real implication, or it could have a real implication for what team is relegated. So the IIHF made the determination that in our rules and our competitions, you cannot lose a game on purpose for sporting or monetary reasons. I think this is a really good illustration about match fixing. Everyone thinks, and we're actually quite lucky, we're not football, we're not cricket. We do not have the same issues in ice hockey that other sports have with respect to match fixing. The problem is we're starting to see it more and more. And the reality is we see a very small percentage of what is actually going on. The goal, and the IIHF focuses on education because we do not want to see this full picture. We never wanted to come to fruition. We never want to be football or cricket. Okay, the IIHF thinks that there's an increase in competition manipulations for a few reasons. First of all, globalization. The internet. Everyone can bet anywhere all the time. You have VPNs, even in countries where it's illegal. You get a VPN to another country and you can bet. Developments in communication. Developments in the betting market. Organized crime. Sadly, mob bosses want to be in sports. Sports is fun. It's glamorous. They want to be involved in that. They want to take advantage of the income that they can derive from it. And it's the failure of many authorities to do anything or the right thing. I was in Canada 2 weeks ago at a CCS conference where CCS and a lot of officials in Canada were begging the government to do something. Acknowledge this, change the law. Acknowledge this is a problem, start doing something. Finland has a great system. Harry from their anti-doping organization, which does both, he was there trying to convince the government officials, please take advantage, please look at this, do something so that we do not have future problems. The reality is there's a lot of stuff going on in countries. They don't want to acknowledge it. They think there's bigger fish to fry. When I say there's an increase in betting, in 2015 when the IIHF started watching our events, it was the first year we started monitoring events. At our World Championship, we had 79.5 million bet on the entire World Championships. It was about 1.2 million per game. I don't have the statistics for 2019 because the tournament's not over, but last year, in just 3 years, we've went from 80 million bet on the World Championships to almost 900 million bet on the World Championships. That's 14 million per game. I have no doubt when I get the statistics back from the 2019 World Championships, it will be over 1 billion bet on our World Championships. And this gives you an idea. This is the bookmakers that are offering coverage on ice hockey events. World Women's. I got a call during the World Women's because we have an integrity partner. Very alarmed by how many bookmakers, how many bets were being done on our World Women's. I always tell everybody, it's not necessarily a bad thing. Betting in ice hockey is not a bad thing. It brings actually a lot of sponsorship and a lot of revenue to betting. So the idea that we have a lot of bookmakers offering and increasing offering betting possibilities in our event is not necessarily bad. The issue is that it brings more opportunities. It increases the risk of competition manipulation. If there's more opportunity for these mobsters, for these people who are bad, who want to fix games, to actually fix the game and gain money from it, then they're going to do it. This is a graph from Pyeongchang. As you can see, ice hockey is the most bet on sport in the Winter Olympic Games. This is the exact same thing from Sochi. Ice hockey is by far the most bet on sport. Oops, sorry.
Pick it up! Cheat? Fix the competition. It's my job to make sure he does his personal best.
know about her and the team stays between us. Again.
As a friend, I have information that could help to win a bet. That it could hurt him, his career, the whole sport. It's not worth it.
Okay, I think it's really important that you guys know the IIHF rules, because if you're working within the IIHF system, you should know them. The first one, don't bet on ice hockey. And if you are a coach in a multi-sport event, do not bet on any other sport in the event. It's very important to know. Most people, most coaches think, I can just not bet if I'm a coach of a game. All other ice hockey I can bet on, but that's not true. The IIHF made the decision that coaches, athletes, IIHF staff, anyone that works in our system cannot bet in ice hockey at all. You can bet on any other sport, just not ice hockey. And if you get the privilege to coach in the Olympics or coach in a multi-sport event, you cannot bet on any sport in that event. Obviously, the obvious one is never manipulate a competition and always encourage players to do their best. Don't share insider information. I'll show you in a minute. We had an issue with a team this year. They realized they weren't going to be promoted. There's not a chance that they were going to be relegated. They started posting all their team strategy on their social media page 2 hours before going into the game. The betting went insane. I got a phone call. This match is for sure fixed. Don't share insider information on your Facebook page. And always report. I think that's a really key thing for coaches. Same thing for officials. I get in front of officials and I talk to them and tell them, you must report. If you see something on the ice and it's suspicious, report. They're scared to death. I have officials coming up to me saying, but if I report, am I going to get in trouble? Will the IIHF name me to another event? I really like this. I want to help, but I don't want to get in trouble. I don't want to get brought in. The IIHF sees it the exact opposite. I was actually really surprised when I had officials come to me. If you come and you report, you help prevent competition manipulation becoming rampant in ice hockey. That's only a good thing. You're helping the sport. The IIHF, or I'm sure the national federations, the leagues, would never view that negatively. They would only view that positively, that you're helping the system. I think that this is really key. Coaches sometimes like to stand back and say, oh, is it really my responsibility? The issue is maybe besides professional, you guys are in contact with everybody. You're in contact with the players. You're in contact with the other administrative staff. You're in contact with the parents. You guys have the ability to touch everybody. You guys are kind of the key in the circle. Next to the athletes who are directly on the ice and the officials who are directly on the ice, you guys have the most power to influence and ensure match fixing does not occur in our sport. You take it seriously. You stand up for what's right, and so will your athletes. And I also think it's important, not only do you guys need to encourage your athletes not to manipulate so that they're aware, and also encourage them or make them understand when they could be aware or when they might be approached. The reality is that you're all susceptible to be approached for match fixing. You guys control who goes on that ice. You guys can actually control whether a game is won or lost. So it's important to know that you'll be approached. And it's not going to be at a direct approach. You're not going to have a mobster come up to you with a ton of gold chains, maybe a gold tooth, and ask you to fix a game. It's going to be subtle. It's going to be from a friend. It's going to be maybe from a colleague. And they're going to ask you to be their friend. They're going to say, hey, let's go for a beer. Once they become their friend, they're going to say, hey, you know what? You're already going to be promoted. You're already going to the final. Why don't you lose the game tonight, and I can give you a bit of money? And the issue is you, like I tell players, you do it one time. You do it that time that it has no influence, it has no significance for this tournament. And the thing is that they have you. Those match fixers know the rules. They know that you're not supposed to match fix. They know that you're supposed to report. And then they start blackmailing you. And I know this seems kind of extreme and you feel very far removed from it. But the reality is you're not. We are seeing this more and more and more in sports. I gave a lecture to a Kazakhstan team, and the coach just stops me. And he gets up and he starts talking to his players. Of course, it's in Kazakhstan or in Russian. I have no idea what's going on. And he starts talking about all the times that he's been approached or he's seen athletes been approached. So if you haven't experienced it yet, and I hope you don't, the reality is that at some point in your career, you're going to be touched by this. And all I want to do is make sure you guys are aware of the rules so you know to say no and you know what to do. You know, I always get the question, how does the IIHF know everything? How do you guys know when a game is fixed in a league in Siberia? How do you know? The reality is that the IIHF has eyes everywhere. We cooperate with sporting experts, betting operators, and police forces, Interpol. We have 2 integrity partners. One of them is Sport Radar, and one of them is the IOC EBIS system. The EBIS system is a human component. So the IOC cooperates with betting operators all over the world, and it's a human that's watching their odds that they are offering on ice hockey events, and if they're unusual, they report it to EBIS, and EBIS comes to me. Sport Radar is an algorithm. It's a computer system that's particularly watching all of our events, and if there's unusual odds, will report to me. Not only does Sport Radar watch our events, they are actually partners with several of our leagues, and they also, same thing, betting operators don't want to lose money. If a game is fixed, they lose money. They'll go to Sport Radar and they'll say, hey, fix this. Go to the IIHF and tell them to fix it, because I don't want to lose money anymore. So this is our championship structure. In 2015, we started watching our top events, and that was it. We were only watching the World Men Under 20, and the World Men Under 18. However, as of 2018, we started watching every single IIHF championship. And the reason that we did this is because the increasing betting operators offering odds on lower IIHF tournaments. So when the IIHF started this, we're like, oh, it's the big tournaments. It's those ice hockey players who are getting the big salaries. In reality, that's not the case. The greatest risk is our Division 1A and 1B, because those are the players who maybe might not yet be making those top salaries. So it's less risk for them. Getting $100,000 from fixing one game versus maybe making $80,000 in their league salary, maybe it's less risky for them. Also, World Women, it's betting's going crazy in the women's, and they don't make the big salaries, if they make a salary at all. IIHF competition format, like I said, our competition format is very susceptible to manipulation. And also the sad reality is every single year, the alerts in ice hockey are increasing. Every single year, I'm going to national federations telling them, hey, you gotta start an investigation. Something's going on in your league. You gotta figure out what's going on. And then obviously, we started having actual incidents in some of our competitions, which led us to directly start watching every single event. These are two events where we had competition manipulation, or we started an investigation. In our Division 1A, Group A this year, we had an alert that there could potentially be competition manipulation for sporting reasons. Every time we get an alert, I have to do an investigation and find out what's going on. And then in 2017, in our Division 1A, we had match-fixing cases. We had 2 players that were suspended for life because they agreed to fix the final game of the competition. It was a year-long investigation. These players, one never played ice hockey again. One did not play ice hockey for a year and a half. Essentially, when he was allowed to start playing ice hockey again, no club would touch him. He went to Korea. Korea found out, nope, we don't want anything to do with him. I think the reality is that IIHF has proportional sanctions. You make a mistake, we're not going to throw you out for the rest of your life, but you will live with that stigma for the rest of your life. And the reality is that no club wants to touch these players. So every time, this gives you guys an idea of what the IHF does when we get an alert. We investigate. We do an initial review. One of the very first things that I do when I get an alert is I get that game footage and I send it to our experts. We have an amazing disciplinary panel that actually works our top championship. I send it to some of them. I say, watch this game. You guys tell me if there's anything unusual. If they come back to me and they say, no, it's completely normal, there's no way these players were manipulating competition, then it's done. And that's actually where I would say 95% of our alerts stop. But if not, we notify our M&A. We obtain a detailed report. We may get in contact with Interpol. We get in contact with the local authorities. We look to see if match fixing is an issue in that country. Ultimately, the case file will go to our ethics board, and they will make a determination of whether or not, by a preponderance of the evidence, it's a very legal term, whether it will go to the disciplinary board for sanctioning. Additionally, like I said, we force our M&As to investigate league issues. These are some of the league issues that we have going on in different countries. We have alerts in Kazakhstan, Russia, Slovakia, Ukraine. We get in contact with the federations and we tell them, hey, you guys have to start an investigation. The IIHF is moving towards having an integrity officer and our M&As because there's such a lag time. I go to my federation and I say, hey, you guys have to start investigating it. And they're like, oh, what do we do? We don't know how to handle it. So we're going to start working with them so that they know who in the police to go to, so that maybe they know who to contact at Interpol, what the law is in their country, how to handle that investigation, because the law is different in every country. This is essentially how we handle M&A investigations. We leave it to our M&As to resolve it first. The final decision comes to the IHF, and our disciplinary board can make a decision about, or actually the IHF can make the decision about whether we enforce it globally. So if a player gets in trouble in an M&A in his league, most players think, no big deal. I'm suspended from my league. I'll transfer and play someplace else. It actually happened. We had actually a Canadian UK player who, before the IHF got our rules together, it was 2014, he got in trouble. He realized he was going to get in trouble, and he left. I had no rules at that time that I could enforce to ensure that player was sanctioned similar to other players. It's actually this exact case. These three players were Danish players. The middle one, Dennis Jensen, he was the goalie. He received a 1-year suspension for fixing the game. And the other two received suspensions, for betting on their own competition. There was a fourth player that was involved in this. Unfortunately, before the Danish Federation was able to learn, actually it's the Danish Sports Federation, was able to learn of what exactly happened, that player was gone. He left. And at that time, I had no rules that I could enforce a sanction against him. We've since changed that. But so just as a thing, we went through monitoring, investigation. I want to say the IHF focuses on education, which is the top pillar. And that's what we advise all of our coaches, all of our M&As, all of the leagues to focus on education. The last thing I want to do is sanction a player for betting on his own game if he did not know he couldn't bet on his own game. So the IHF really and heavily focuses on education. We have videos. This is a video. We don't have time to watch it. We have brochures. We have pamphlets. We have PowerPoint presentations. And the thing is that this is all free to any coach, to any M&A, to anyone who wants to use it. The IHF freely gives out all of its material because our goal is to spread the word. We have an excellent video, but that is actually done by Kirill Starkov, where he tells his story about how it happened to him, and he goes through all of the integrity issues. The IHF, that gives that to federations. You can translate it. You can put subtitles in it. Anything that can help you as a coach in your sport. So just to finalize, with respect to match fixing, have a person dealing with the matter concerning irregular betting within your organization. You have a team. Just designate one person. They don't have to be a betting expert. They don't have to be a match fixing expert. Just have that one person who you know, hey, he keeps up with the rules. If there's an issue, this is who I tell my player to go to. Know the facts and be up to date. Know our rules. Be aware of the various forms, insider information, betting, match fixing. Know who to contact. The IHF is always here. We have an integrity email. Also, I always advise to go to the IOC. The IOC has a completely anonymous hotline. If you don't feel comfortable coming to the IHF, if you think your player is not comfortable going to the National Federation or the league, tell them to go to the anonymous hotline at the IOC. We will never know their name, we'll never know anything, but they can still report the information that they have. And I think also most important is just educate your players. Have them attend workshops. The IIHF travels. We send people to probably 5 to 10 of our world championships a year to do a quick 30-minute education with players. Make sure your player, put importance on it. A lot of times the coaches are like, oh no, I have practice, I have this, the kids can't come, it's not important, but it is important. Because if you don't have a team because you have a player who fixed a game, then it doesn't matter whether you have practice or not. And lastly, be available. Just be available to them for both anti-doping and match fixing issues. Okay, thank you.
We just wanted to quickly go through some resources that we've been building. We've been quite busy this season. We want to really redo everything that we have for what we can offer to our membership in terms of supporting them in the development of the game, including coach development. And for all of this, pretty much what you're going to see, we're hoping to launch when we open the development camp in July. So July 5th, July 6th, that's what we're going to push for. It'll be a push, but we'll try. Okay, just a bit of background. So we wanted to build a long-term athlete development model, and so we set up a work group. And the first thing we decided is that we're not going to do a long-term athlete development model. It's quite difficult when you have 76 countries, different cultures, starting ages, and so on. So we acknowledged that we have to be a bit more vague, and that's how we got with this. I drew it so it doesn't look too good, but just some examples. So here's when you're born, and that's where you die. And that's your skill level, hopefully progressing. And really that simplified, everybody will start. Every single hockey player will start. So what do we do about that? Hopefully big masses will stay, and then this tiny, tiny portion will succeed. Succeed to us means that you play in the Olympics or the World Championships. You're playing professionally. So if you're playing under 18 national team, to us, that doesn't mean that yet. So it's really, really tiny area. This, I don't like the red line that I would have drawn because it could be here as well. We're definitely not saying that you have to start the game that early to succeed. But it'd be so full of lines, so that's there. The other thing you might notice here is the I think across the world we're dropping the ball a little bit, that you have adults that would like to join the game, and we don't have much to offer to them. So, and in terms of business, for example, or generating revenue, that would be maybe a good opportunity to set up some programs for 45-year-olds. Come and try. They don't always have to go to golf. Simplified, so start, stay, and succeed. We really look at these 4 components as our development program. So what do we do for player recruitment to get them there? How do we teach the first steps of the game, so learn to play? And then we're building this as a result of that long-term athlete development. We're building a guide on player development. So that's throughout. And then, of course, an important part of this is the coach development. You guys, we really, really think that you guys are the most important. If we're talking about how the game's going to develop or grow, coaches are the most important stakeholders in that. We're working on new branding, so I wanted to throw that nice slide. It will be good looking. But there again, kids eventually going all the way to national team. You might have been at the new IIHF.com, new being that it was launched last September. What we're really happy about is that there's a sport and development section. So that was a long discussion, and it is there. But there's a ton of work to be done, and here's the plan. It right now has this. So we want to scratch a couple of things, reorganize, keep the rules and regulations, women's hockey, officiating, so that they're one click away. But we'd set up this development hub, and in there, what was discussed, we will have materials for player recruitment. We will put all of our learn to play manuals, the ones that we have redone. We'll have the player development guide, coaching resources, and also other areas that we do in development. So information about our camps or facilities, and some of these programs that we use to support our membership in development. There's another this is probably how the learn to play manuals are going to look like. If you go look at the ones that we have right now, it takes you about half a second and you notice that they were made 1952. So we need to modernize a bit. Good, so player development guide, as I said, you could say that it's a long-term player development model, but at the same time it's not as detailed as, for example, USA Hockey or Hockey Canada or Finns or Czechs and so on would have, because we have to deal with all the countries. But we want to push for this developmental stage appropriate practices and really this individual. We talked a lot about athlete-centered coaching yesterday, so how do you progress with the individuals? A lot of us talk about age appropriate, but then you get 12-year-olds and one's the size of this house and the other one's like that tall. So just talking about age to us isn't quite enough. And really the guide itself is a ton of supportive materials for all these different target groups that you can see here. And again, coaches being mentioned first. You can read the text, maybe better that I don't read. But we just want to be clear that this is not rules. I think when it comes to anti-doping or match fixing, those are rules, but we're not force feeding this. We just want to put it out there. We want to support and really look at this holistic development. So it's not just drills. There will be more to support the individuals. I think for coaches, the two main areas, so now again you hear this developmental stage, but really that we will have resources for you to work with the players on and off the ice. And there will be, as you can see, drills, games, practice plans, off-ice training, season planning, session planning, nutrition, mental skills. Also, we want to include resources for parents. I think we all think that parents are crazy, but at the same time, it's more so an opportunity for us. Often it's a case of just not being aware. So we'll have those resources available. Good, I got 9 minutes. But now I got to do this technical challenge. If it doesn't work, it's his fault. And can we, duplicate? Good. Maybe you click the cookies part. Yeah. This is more or less how it's going to look, the drill pages. So we'll do the usual, sort of business as usual. You're going to have a video. For the sake of time, we're not going to watch it. But you will have a player or players performing a drill. We're going to include points of emphasis, what's important, because video by itself is not enough. And then we'll have drawings like this to show you. This is not an app. How do I get back to this is not an app, but we have built the pages so that they're mobile friendly. So when you visit the bathroom, you can take a look and what do you want to do in your next practice. This summer, we're going to have about 350 drills go on the IIHF.com for free for you guys to use. But again, it's only 350. We're not looking at having a few thousand. The internet already has, or the apps, there's millions of drills. So what we just want to do with these is to show examples. So when we're talking about the development path of the players, we're just showing that if you're dealing with beginners or intermediates or advanced, the different skill levels that we're talking about, you might want to use drills like this. So that's the objective. But please use them. Hopefully it'll be valuable for you. So the other thing, I talked about the importance of coaches. So there's an older IIHF coach development program that's used by a number of national associations. We did think that we probably need to work on modernizing it, but rather to go and building one program and telling the world that here's a good program for you, again for the same challenges. We wanted to more so first build a framework that everybody could benefit from. Frauke, that all of you would have met. Frauke did the first bit as her master's thesis in coaching. Did a, excuse my language, but hell of a job. Top marks. And then I got Wade on board as well. So we continued from there as a team, included some coach developers, included the coaching committee. So it's been quite an awesome process. We still have a little bit of work to do, but we're almost there. And this is what we believe in. And I really would emphasize that the last sentence there, that thus ensure that players choose to keep playing ice hockey. We really think, especially when it's youth, but also later on, that the primary measure of how good the coach is should be that how many players come back. And to us, it doesn't take away any of the high performance, any of the tough stuff. I think we talked yesterday, great discussions about good coaching. We'll have more of that today. We want to keep the kids in the game, right? And I don't think anybody here can say that you can afford to lose it. So here's what it is. To us, it's a set of best and universal, because, again, we have to provide it to the whole world. It's not best practices, it's best principles. So what are the best principles that you can apply across the world for quality coaching? And when you go into quality coaching, you can quite easily transfer then to what is quality coach development, which is really what we want to do with our national associations. So the second point is really for coach development, coach developers. If a national association wants to create a coach development program or enhance the current one, we would first say, okay, read this, and we'll talk then. So, but we were talking about it yesterday, that is it for coaches? But we think it is. It doesn't hurt if you read through it. And really, we think that for you, if you go through it, you could reflect on your current coaching, and perhaps there's matters that are brought up there, for example, well-being, that will be useful for you. So we encourage you to read it, even if you're not a National Association coach developer. Here's just a bit of a content overview. So we start off with what is quality coaching, then talk about coaching context. Where do you coach, who do you coach, and so on. And then this is really good from Frauke. I think Wade's talked about it as well, the well-being of coaches. You guys really work hard, and you really work hard to make sure that your players are feeling well. And then you forget about yourself, or your clubs forget about you. And if you're not feeling well, it's going to be quite tough to deliver that quality coaching. So we have a section on that to address it, and hopefully give some practical solutions also, so that you guys are going to perform to the best of your ability. And then we use that bridge to get to coach development, and another bridge to how to develop a coach development program. And just an example on, those were the macros. So if you take the quality coaching, we start with coaching philosophy, then we talk about athlete-centered coaching approach, which is very much what we believe in. Essential coaching knowledge, and there we're talking about, of course, the professional knowledge, but also interpersonal and intrapersonal knowledge. How are you with people? How are you with yourself? How well do you know yourself? All of that stuff. I have a hiccup here, don't I? Because that should say core competencies and so on, right? I was just testing if you guys follow. Okay, anyway, so where was I? I was in essential coaching knowledge. I think that next thing we talk about is core competencies, and then we talk about athlete outcomes, and so on. Sorry about that. It was the beer that was in my hand yesterday that got me distracted. Do you have, for now, any questions about that before I quickly talk about the Partnership for Progress? No. We wanted to mention this as well. We have Peter Briza here. Some of you might know Peter had an okay career as a goalie, and since then has been involved with everything Sparta Prague, but also the IIHF Council, the Czech Ice Hockey Association, the Champions Hockey League Board, so on and so on. And Peter chairs the Youth and Junior Development Committee of the IIHF. So we got to talking that there's so much more we could do. So for example, the IIHF has, Ashley had that slide with all the championships. So we have about 30 events every year. And the only one where we've been doing anything educational or development related is actually this occasion that we're right at. And the other thing that we wanted to is really have partnerships. We know that in hockey, folks are always willing to help one another. So that we should take that and we should start facilitating it. So this season was really dedicated to pilot projects. So we ended up doing 6 seminars in these events. And we wanted to address, a couple of those were women's hockey. We had sort of high performance coaching. We had learn to play, player recruitment. So go to different places and talk about different things, whatever is relevant in those areas. And that went pretty well. We were just talking about it last night, that it doesn't take much to set up a good conference, and you can really make a direct local impact. So of course we're going to still analyze and discuss further, but we see that this is something we're going to do in the future. I won't spend too much on this, but we asked in the beginning of the season how many national associations want to be part of this, and right now we've been collecting information that who actually did what, which we're going to report the next week to the Congress. But then the club pilots. So we wanted to do 5 pilot projects, but then we got a bit excited and promoted a bit more. So we had, to the best of our knowledge, 15 projects this season where clubs were cooperating together. I don't have the examples here. We gave some examples. So, for example, players and coaches go for a visit, spend a week or so, be part of the everyday life, attend practices, the coaches attend games, share information. We think that there's value for the bigger clubs helping out as well, because if you're from a big club, you have a good system and so on. If you're hosting somebody, they'll come with 1,000 questions. And we do think that that makes you also think about why you're doing certain things. And you know how it works. After we finish today, you go for, the whole time I talk about beer, you're going to go for a glass of water with your friend here, and you just start chatting. And most likely you'll pick up something valuable that you can use in your everyday life. So that's what we did on the club side, and really want to promote. So we have over 30 countries here. We're about 300 people in the room, although I don't think everybody showed up this morning. But we'd really like to grow this next season. If this is something that you're interested in, please go back to your club and start the chat. We'd love to have you part of this. And the idea really is that, okay, you have huge clubs, and then you have somewhat medium-sized clubs, and then you have really small ones. So the idea is that if you're in that middle range, that you will get support from a big club, but you would also then give support. So this is a partnership. Everybody's ready to give. Everybody's ready to receive. I'm done here, but I got this, Johan Ballou sent me this video. We talk a lot about project management and stress and how do you get all the shit done you have to do. And this guy is my new idol. I don't know if I don't know who he is. I just got this via WhatsApp. But when we're talking about your well-being, this guy is your best friend.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's a beautiful slide. When followed in life, I guarantee you, life will be different. I guarantee you, if this is applied in life, we can have peaceful night's sleep. Here it is. Do you have a problem in life? No? Then why worry? Do you have a problem in life? Yes. Can you do something about it? Yes. Then why worry? Do you have a problem in life? Yes. Can you do something about it? No. Then why worry? Isn't it? Is it not?
He's my personal hero. I think it was Kevin McLaughlin that trip here yesterday. Was it? Yeah, it doesn't matter, but a person tripped here yesterday, and we couldn't get the signal, the HDMI, on anymore. And we're trying to figure out, is it the cable or is it actually inside the problem? So I'm just standing back going, can you do something about it? Nope, don't worry. And all I do is leave. Good, that's it. Do you have any questions about these? I'll be, of course, around the whole day. If you want to talk about the Partnership for Progress or any of these resources, you can grab me. But we do have a question here, if we can get the mic.
What's your time frame for having this in place?
So, you mean the resources?
Yeah.
Like I said, we would like to launch this when we start the development camp in Vierumäki this summer. So July 5th, July 6th is the start of the camp. Because what we'd really like to is in that camp they could use these resources already, and we can immediately collect feedback from 200 people that use it in everyday life. However, please note, whether it's the coach development framework or any of these resources, it's not like we're write them in stone and just we're done. So, for example, in the player development guide, we're going to have a goaltenders section and their development section. That won't be done this summer. It'll come later. And also, when we launch, we're more than open to get feedback. So use the same email address and bug me if you think there's something that should be added or should be fixed. So we really want that there's this evolution and it just grows and grows. Good.